My gold-digger wife stacked $260,000 of debt, so I triggered the Ironclad Prenup, saved my credit, and walked away with my condo and dog. Let me back it up. We met at a friend's pool party 4 years ago. I'm a software architect and do pretty well for myself. She was in luxury marketing. Should have been my first red flag, LOL. When we met, Skylar was this crazy, confident woman who seemed to have her shit together, designer clothes, the newest iPhone, never stressed about money. I was impressed because she seemed independent and didn't come off as clingy or desperate like some of my exes. On our first date, she took me out and paid for a fancy steakhouse without even glancing at the prices. I remember thinking, damn, she's successful. We clicked right away. She was funny, smart, and seemed to genuinely enjoy my nerdy tech jokes. Plus, she was smoking hot, like way out of my league hot. Her Instagram was full of perfect aesthetics, brunches at upscale restaurants, weekend getaways to wine country, designer shopping hauls. I later found out her dad was bankrolling a lot of that lifestyle, but at the time, I just thought she was killing it in her career. After 8 months, we moved in together. My place was bigger, a downtown condo I'd bought 2 years before meeting her, so she moved in with me. She brought all these fancy home decor pieces that probably cost more than my first car. Her clothes took up 80% of the closet. But I didn't mind. I'm a t-shirts and jeans kind of guy anyway. The first red flag I completely missed. She forgot her checkbook when rent was due the first month, the second month, and basically every month after that. Always had an excuse. My commission check is late. I had to help my sister with her car payment, whatever. I covered it, thinking we'd square up later. We never did. A year and a half later, I proposed. She cried, said yes, the whole fairy tale moment. Instead of a ring, I gave her my grandfather's limited edition Rolex Explorer from the 70s, a family engagement tradition. It's worth about $50,000 now, but the sentimental value is way higher. My dad had given it to me when I turned 30, and I gave it to Skylar as a promise that we'd build something real together. The look in her eyes when she saw that watch, I thought it was love. Now I realize she was probably mentally calculating the resale value. Around that time, I adopted Rocco, this awesome 3-year-old rescue lab mix who just needed a good home after his previous owner died. Skylar wasn't thrilled about having a dog, complained about the hair, the walks, how he'd ruin her designer shoes. But I put my foot down. Rocco is non-negotiable. Surprisingly, she backed off quickly. Looking back, that should have been another red flag. She gave in way too easily on something she supposedly cared about. We got married pretty fast after the engagement. Small ceremony, nothing crazy. She was all about the marriage, not the wedding, which I thought was cool. Her dad, Vince, was weird at the wedding though, kept making jokes about how I was the bank now. I laughed it off. Her mom barely spoke to me the whole day. Now I wonder if she knew what Skylar was up to. My parents gifted us a honeymoon to Greece, 2 weeks of pure bliss. Skylar wanted to extend the trip another week since we're already here, but I had to get back to work. She pouted but agreed. When we got home, I discovered she'd spent almost $12,000 on her credit card during the trip. Souvenirs and experiences she never discussed with me. I had suggested a prenup before the wedding, mostly to protect my condo and some investments I'd been building since college. She agreed immediately, which seemed cool at the time. Now I realize she probably never even read the damn thing. The first year of marriage was mostly solid. We traveled, built our careers, no real fights except when it came to Rocco. She'd accidentally leave the gate open and he'd escape, forcing me to rush home from work to find him, or she'd forget to feed him when I was traveling for work. Rocco never warmed up to her, would literally leave the room when she entered. Dogs no man. She decorated my condo, which I bought before we met, and I was fine with her taking the lead since I'm not good at that stuff. What I didn't know was that she was trying to get her name added to the deed without telling me. The management company called to verify some paperwork she'd submitted, and I was like, huh? I brushed it off as a misunderstanding. Big mistake. Fast forward to last month. It was a Friday night. Skylar had left that morning for what she called a mandatory work retreat for the weekend. Found out later it was actually a girls' trip to Vegas with her squad, all funded on a credit card I didn't know existed. I was chilling with Rocco, enjoying the peace and quiet, when I remembered our taxes were due soon and I needed to gather our documents. So I headed into the home office to dig through the filing cabinet. Skylar had organized our paperwork a few months earlier, and I couldn't find anything anymore. After an hour of searching through meticulously labeled folders like home inspiration, just magazine cutouts, future plans, brochures for luxury vacations, I still couldn't find our tax stuff. That's when Rocco wandered in, went straight to the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet and started pawing at it like he smelled something interesting. I shooed him away at first, but then got curious. What was so interesting down there? I opened the bottom drawer and found it stuffed with old magazines, takeout menus, and random junk, typical Schuyler organization. Hide the clutter instead of dealing with it. But as I started pulling stuff out to look for the tax docs, I noticed something wedged at the very back, a thick manila folder labeled personal hidden behind everything else. It looked worn, like it had been handled a lot, which was weird because I'd never seen it before. Something about the way it was hidden made my gut twist. Call it intuition, but I knew this wasn't going to be good. I opened it up and... holy shit. First thing I saw was a Chase Sapphire Reserve statement with a $32,489 balance, then an American Express Platinum with $28,675, then a Nordstrom card with $16,320, all in her name, all with only minimum payments made, all showing massive amounts of debt. I dumped the entire folder on my desk and spent the next hour sorting through what turned out to be a financial horror show: credit card statements, loan documents, collection notices, past due bills, overdraft notices. I'm talking $260,000 of debt spread across dozens of accounts. Credit cards maxed out at 29% interest, personal loans with sketchy online lenders charging illegal level fees, a second mortgage on some condo in Phoenix I'd never even heard of. The spending was insane. $4,000 at Gucci, $2,800 at a spa in Sedona, $7,300 at Saks, $1,200 at some place called Liquid Courage Bottle Service. There were online shopping bills for clothes she'd wear once for Instagram, then donate, sell on Poshmark, and keep the money. Some of these bills dated back to before we met. She'd been carrying this debt for years. Some were from just last month, like our supposedly budget-conscious trip to see my parents, where she claimed she barely spent anything. All were delinquent. Minimum payments only, if that, late fees stacked on late fees. Some accounts had already been sent to collections. I felt like I was going to throw up. This was my wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, and she'd been hiding a whole secret financial life. But it only got worse. Around midnight, as I was going through everything, I found a Capital One statement for a card with my name on it, but I don't have a Capital One card, never have. This one had a $22,000 balance and was 60 days past due. Then another statement from Citi with my name. Then a Bank of America card, also not mine. All maxed out. All showing late payments, destroying the credit score I'd built since college. The statements were being sent to a P.O. box I didn't know existed. P.O. Box 248 at a post office across town. She'd been intercepting mail, opening statements addressed to me, making minimum payments from our joint checking account. And I had no idea. I couldn't sleep after that discovery. Spent the whole night Googling identity theft between spouses, community property laws, and is marriage fraud a real thing? Remember, we live in a community property state, which means I could be on the hook for half her debt even though it was in her name. The more I dug, the worse it got. Rocco stayed by my side the whole time, 3:37, head on my lap like he knew my world was imploding. Around 3 a.m. I found a box of mail in her closet, my mail opened, and then resealed to look untampered. Credit card offers she'd filled out in my name, investment statements she'd been monitoring, even a letter from my grandmother with a $100 birthday check she'd cashed and never told me about. By morning, I was running on Red Bull and pure adrenaline. I took everything I'd found and created a massive timeline on the dining room table, printouts, statements, spreadsheets tracking her spending habits, everything laid out by date. I wanted her to see exactly what I'd discovered, no way to minimize or explain it away. Rocco was my emotional support that weekend. Every time I found some new financial horror, I'd look at him and say, "Can you believe this shit?" He'd tilt his head like, "Told you she was a gold digger, bro. Dogs know, man. They always know." Sunday night, I heard her key in the door. Rocco immediately went from relaxed to alert, standing between me and the door like my furry bodyguard. When Schuyler walked in, she was all smiles, carrying a small shopping bag. More shopping, naturally. Her face when she saw the dining table, I'll never forget it. First shock, then this weird calm, like she'd been preparing for this moment. "What's all this?" she asked, dropping her bag and looking around like I was the one who'd done something wrong. "You tell me," I said, arms crossed, leaning against the wall. Rocco was right beside me, unusually still and watchful. She walked to the table, glanced at the papers, then sighed dramatically like I was overreacting to a small mistake. She sat down, folded her hands, and said the words that ended our marriage. "Listen, it's just some debt. Nothing serious. $260,000 isn't much for someone like you." "Someone like me? What the actual hell does that mean?" I asked, trying to stay calm even though I was about to lose my shit. My hands were literally shaking. "Come on, babe," she said with this smirk that made my skin crawl. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "You make great money. Your family has money, and your investments are doing amazing. We'll just pay it off together. That's what marriage is." That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake or bad financial decisions or even a shopping addiction. This was the plan all along. She targeted me, assessed my finances, and decided I was the solution to her debt problem. She hadn't married me. She'd married my credit score. "Were you ever going to tell me about any of this?" I asked. She shrugged. "Eventually. Why stress about it now when we can just handle it?" I looked at the newest credit inquiry, a loan application from last week using my social security number without my knowledge. And this, using my info for credit checks? That's literal identity theft. "Skylar, don't be so dramatic." She rolled her eyes. "It's not like it's a stranger using your info. It's your wife. What's yours is mine, right?" I asked about the cards in my name. She didn't even deny opening them. "You make six figures and barely spend anything," she said. "Like that justified fraud. It's not like you check your credit score. I was managing it all just fine." "Managing it? These cards are all maxed out and overdue." "Well, I've been under a lot of stress lately. Work is demanding, and you're always so wrapped up with that stupid dog." Rocco, who had been lying in the corner watching all this go down, growled at her. The first time I ever heard him do that. Good boy. I asked about the condo in Phoenix. Turns out it was an investment property she bought with her dad before we met, then took a second mortgage on to pay off some of her other debts. It was underwater now. The market had tanked. "So, what's the plan here?" I asked. "We used some of your tech stock to clear the high-interest stuff," she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Then we budget to pay off the rest over the next few years." "My tech stock from before we were married, the stuff specifically protected in our prenup." Her face changed. "What are you talking about? That prenup doesn't cover existing assets." "It literally does. It's like the main thing it covers." She went pale. Clearly she'd never actually read it. She'd probably assumed it was just standard boilerplate protecting future earnings or something. "Let me see it," she demanded. "You signed it," I reminded her. "You should have your own copy." "I misplaced it." I bet she did. I slept in the guest room that night, or tried to. Mostly I just stared at the ceiling, wondering how I could have been so fucking blind. Rocco abandoned his usual spot at the foot of our bed to sleep next to me instead. That dog was the only one in the house with any loyalty. In the morning she was sweet as hell, made breakfast, apologized for keeping secrets, said we'd figure it out together. Behind her back, I called my lawyer. That afternoon I took Rocco for a long walk and called my mom. Told her everything. She wasn't even surprised. "I never trusted that girl," she said. "She looked at you like you were an ATM, not a husband. Moms always know." The next morning I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years and went straight to meet a lawyer my buddy had used for his divorce. I'll call him Frank. Ex-military, early 50s, reputation for being a shark in family court. His office was nothing fancy, just a small place above a coffee shop downtown. "I've seen some shit in my 20 years of practice," Frank said after I laid everything out. "But this is next level calculated. She didn't just lie to you, she targeted you." He confirmed what I suspected. In a community property state, I could be partially responsible for debt acquired during the marriage, about half the total. But her using my identity for credit applications was straight up fraud, prenup or not. "This crosses from civil into criminal territory," he explained, tapping my credit report showing accounts I never opened. "Identity theft is identity theft, even between spouses. And these cards in your name? That's a felony. So what do I do?" "First, document everything. And I mean everything. Take photos, make copies, create a timeline, record conversations if that's legal in your state, and don't confront her again until we have a plan." "She's already trying to love bomb me," I said. "Made breakfast this morning, talking about working through this together." "That's typical," Frank nodded. Right now, she's in damage control. She'll minimize what she did, make you feel guilty for being upset, maybe even try to seduce you into forgetting about it. Don't fall for it. He outlined a battle plan that would make Sun Tzu proud: secure my assets, protect my credit, gather evidence, and prepare for what might be a messy divorce, all while pretending everything was normal. "What about my dog?" I asked as we wrapped up. "Rocco is technically mine. I adopted him before the marriage, but she could try to take him just to hurt me." "Pets are considered property in divorce," Frank explained. "Gather his adoption papers, vet records, anything showing you're his primary caretaker. We'll make sure she can't use him as leverage." For the next week, I played it cool, acted like everything was normal while I got my shit together. Every day after work, I executed another piece of the plan. Monday, opened a new bank account at a different bank, transferred a reasonable amount from our joint account. The joint had about $42,000. I took $21,000, left her $21,000. Fair. Tuesday, visited the 3 credit bureaus' websites, placed a freeze on my credit, filed fraud alerts, disputed every account I hadn't opened, called each fraudulent credit card company, and initiated fraud investigations. The customer service rep at Capital One actually gasped when I explained it was my wife who had opened the account. Then rented a safe deposit box and moved my important documents there. Birth certificate, passport, family heirlooms, the original prenup. Took the Rolex too. Had a gut feeling she might try to take it. Met with HR to get Skylar removed as beneficiary on my life insurance and health insurance. Locked down all my investment accounts, changed passwords, added 2-factor authentication, flagged them for suspicious activity. Went full documentation mode, recorded videos while going through the folders, downloaded every bank statement I could find, made a spreadsheet breaking down all the debt line by line. The weekend was tense. Skylar was overly affectionate, constantly touching me, suggesting we take a vacation to reconnect. I'd catch her watching me carefully whenever I was on my laptop or phone. She even suggested we simplify our finances and combine all our accounts for transparency. Yeah, right. She noticed I was spending more time on my laptop in the evenings. She'd come up behind me, massage my shoulders, try to peek at the screen. "Just some work stuff," I'd say, angling the screen away. "Big project coming up." "You work too hard," she'd say, kissing my neck in a way that used to drive me wild but now just made my skin crawl. "Let's go to bed early tonight." The big project was Operation Get the Hell Out. I found an Airbnb that allowed pets, a small house with a fenced yard on the other side of town, paid for a month up front, ordered all new toiletries and basic clothes shipped to my office. 10 days after finding the debt, I waited until Skylar left for a client meeting. Checked her location on Find My Friends to confirm she was actually gone. Took the day off work, and my buddy Ryan came over with his truck to help me move. I didn't take much, just my personal stuff, home office equipment and clothes. Didn't touch the furniture or anything we'd bought together. Made sure to grab all of Rocco's food, toys, and vet records. Rocco seemed to understand something big was happening. He kept running between me and the door like he was helping pack. The last thing I did, changed the codes on the home security system and garage door opener. Removed her access to the smart home features, thermostat, lights, cameras. Not out of spite, but because I didn't trust her not to mess with things remotely. I left my house key and the divorce petition on the kitchen counter along with a printed copy of all the evidence I'd gathered. No dramatic note. The papers said everything that needed to be said. Moved into the Airbnb that day. Blocked her on everything except email, needed it for practical stuff. Ryan helped me unpack, then we ordered pizza. "You okay, man?" he asked as I sat staring at my wedding photo, now face down on the coffee table. "Yeah," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "For the first time in a while, I think I am." The shitstorm started within hours. My phone blew up with texts and calls from her, confused, angry, pleading in the span of 20 minutes. I didn't respond. Then her dad called my parents screaming about how I was a coward abandoning his daughter over a little money trouble. My dad, cool as ever, just said, "If $260,000 of hidden debt is a little money trouble, I'd hate to see what you consider a financial crisis," and hung up. Her mom called next, crying about how Skylar has always been impulsive with money and just needs help learning to budget, as if this was about late-night Amazon shopping and not systematic financial fraud. By evening, Skylar's version of events had spread through our friend group like wildfire. According to her Instagram story, my sister screenshotted it for me. I had suddenly become controlling and freaked out over some student loans. She conveniently left out the identity theft, fraudulent credit cards, and secret P.O. box. Our group chat exploded. Half our friends were messaging me asking if I was okay. The other half, mostly her friends, were already posting supportive comments on her social media about toxic men and financial abuse. Ironic, considering she was the one who'd been financially abusing me. But the real kicker came the next day. My home security system sent an alert that the safe had been opened. I checked the camera feed to see Skylar frantically going through the already empty safe. Then she called my mom in tears claiming I'd stolen her engagement gift, the Rolex. Yeah, she literally did that. The day after I moved out, she started claiming I'd stolen the watch that was given to her. That's when I went nuclear. First, I filed a police report for the identity theft and the stolen Rolex. Had my lawyer send her a letter demanding the watch back within 24 hours or face criminal charges. Her response, "Come get it yourself if you're man enough." So I did, with a police escort. We showed up at the condo. My condo, remember? Unannounced. Skylar wasn't home, but her best friend Tiffany was there picking up some clothes. The look on her face when I walked in with 2 cops? Priceless. "We're here to recover stolen property," the officer said. Tiffany called Skylar in a panic while the cops and I went to the bedroom. The first thing I noticed, all of Rocco's things were gone. His bed, toys, food bowls, everything. When I asked Tiffany where they were, she mumbled something about Skylar donating them since the dog was gone. "The dog is with me," I said. "He's my dog." "Well, she said you abandoned him," Tiffany replied, not meeting my eyes. One of the cops looked at me. "Sir, do you have proof of ownership for the animal?" I pulled out my phone and showed him adoption papers, vet records, and about 500 photos of Rocco and me together. "I've had him for 2 years, she never wanted him, and she knows he's with me. I literally texted her that I was taking him when I left." The Rolex wasn't in the safe or anywhere obvious, but I knew Skylar. She wasn't creative with hiding spots. I went straight to her secret shoebox in the guest closet where she kept birthday cards and found it wrapped in a scarf. As we were bagging it as evidence, I also spotted a folder labeled Rocco Papers. Inside were fake rehoming documents she'd drawn up, planning to give my dog away to her cousin in Oregon, dated for next week. She was literally planning to kidnap my dog and ship him out of state out of spite. I handed that to the cops, too. "Add pet theft conspiracy to the report, please." When Skylar showed up 20 minutes later screaming about how I was violating her privacy, the cops just showed her the police report and the proof the watch was my property. "This is bullshit. He gave it to me," she yelled. "Ma'am, that watch is listed as protected property in your prenuptial agreement, which you signed," my lawyer responded, pulling out a copy. "Page 4, paragraph 3. She went dead quiet. Like I said, she never read the prenup. Then she tried a different angle. "What about all the designer gifts you gave me? The Chanel bags, the Louboutins. Are you taking those back too?" "Those were gifts," I said calmly. The Rolex was a family heirloom on conditional loan as specified in the prenup. Not the same thing. "And what about these documents, suggesting you plan to remove the complainant's dog from the residence and transport him across state lines without permission?" the younger cop asked, holding up the rehoming papers. Skylar's face went from rage to panic in half a second. I was just trying to help find him a home since Mark clearly didn't want him anymore." "I took Rocco with me when I left," I said. "You know that. These papers are dated for next week. You were planning to steal him back and ship him to Oregon." "I would never," she sputtered. But the cops weren't buying it. That's when I noticed her dad's car pulling up outside. I turned to the officers. "We should go. Her father's here and he'll just escalate things." As we were leaving, Vince tried to block the door. "You think you can just walk away from my daughter after all she's done for you?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "You raised a con artist, Vince. Be proud." One of the cops stepped between us. "Sir, you need to step aside. Do you know who I am?" Vince puffed up his chest. "I play golf with the police commissioner." The older cop just sighed. "Sir, I don't care if you play naked twister with the Pope. Step aside or you're interfering with police business." I walked out with my grandfather's watch and didn't look back. In the police car, I pulled out my phone and ordered a top-of-the-line home security system to be installed at the Airbnb the next day. No way was I letting her anywhere near Rocco or my stuff again. The next day, her creditors started calling me. Somehow she'd listed me as a contact on all her accounts without my knowledge. I blocked about 20 different numbers in 3 hours. As the divorce proceedings moved forward, more dirt came to light. Skylar's luxury marketing job? She'd been fired 6 months earlier for expense account fraud. She'd been pretending to go to work every day but was actually shopping, going to spas, or hanging with her equally unemployed friends. Her parents had been covering some of her bills, but even they didn't know the full extent. When Vince found out she'd forged his signature on the second mortgage for the Phoenix condo, he went ballistic and actually called me to apologize. "I didn't know she was like this," he said, sounding genuinely shocked. "We spoiled her, but I never thought she'd—" "I'm sorry, son. Too little, too late, Vince." The worst part, she'd been planning her exit strategy for months. I found emails between her and a sleazy divorce attorney from before I even discovered the debt, discussing how to maximize financial extraction from me. She'd been researching states with the most favorable alimony laws, planning to suggest we move there and then file for divorce once established. Her plan B, if I discovered the debt early: get pregnant. Found searches on her laptop: how to get pregnant without husband knowing and can you contest prenup if pregnant. Bullet dodged. Meanwhile, Rocco and I were settling into our temporary Airbnb life. The place had a huge fenced yard and he was living his best dog life. I started taking him to work with me. My company is super dog friendly and he'd just chill under my desk during meetings. The office admin started keeping treats in her desk just for him. We'd go for runs every morning, hit the dog park on weekends without Skylar's constant complaints about fur or muddy paws. We were both a lot happier. I never realized how much tension her presence created until she was gone. The divorce was finalized last week. Record time, thanks to the evidence of fraud and the Ironclad Prenup. The judge was not impressed with Skylar's "he should pay it because he can afford it" defense. "Ma'am, marriage is a partnership, not a blank check," the judge told her. I could have kissed that woman. Because of the identity theft, I was cleared of all responsibility for her debt. She tried to claim I'd verbally agreed to pay off her loans. No proof. Went nowhere. Her lawyer tried to argue I'd abandoned the marital home and therefore should lose equity rights. Judge shut that down fast when my lawyer showed evidence Skylar had tried to add her name to the deed without my knowledge. She claimed I'd been emotionally unavailable and working too much. Classic deflection. My lawyer presented our text history showing me constantly checking in, planning date nights, and generally being present while she was the one working late, also known as shopping after being fired. Her final desperate move, she claimed Rocco was her emotional support animal and she needed him for her divorce-induced anxiety. Had her therapist write a letter and everything. My lawyer shut that down with vet records showing I adopted him, paid for all his care, and took him to every appointment, plus the evidence she'd been planning to get rid of him. In the end, the judge awarded me full ownership of my condo, all my premarital assets, including investments and retirement accounts she'd been eyeing, a restraining order preventing her from coming within 500 feet of me, my home, my workplace, or Rocco. $1, yes, literally $1 in spousal support just for the symbolism. Skylar got her personal belongings, minus the Rolex, her leased car, all of her debt, every penny, a court order to undergo financial counseling. When the judge read the decision, Skylar burst into rage tears and actually screamed in open court, "This is so unfair." The judge looked at her and said, "Perhaps this will be a valuable lesson in honesty and fiscal responsibility, Miss Harris." As we left the courtroom, Skylar tried to approach me, but my lawyer stepped between us. "You need to respect the restraining order, Miss Harris," he said loudly enough for the bailiff to hear. She backed off but hissed, "This isn't over," as we walked away. But it was. It absolutely was. Her financial situation is a dumpster fire now. 3 creditors have won judgments against her. Her wages are being garnished, and she had to move back in with her parents because she can't qualify for an apartment with her credit score. Somewhere in the dear God why range. After losing her marketing job for falsifying expense reports, she tried to rebrand as a financial wellness coach on Instagram. That fell apart when a debt collector found her account and commented the details of her defaulted loans on every post. You can't make this shit up. Her dad had to sell their vacation house to